Hi, my name is Andreas. I'm a UCL medical student here in London. And today I wanted to present our new book that we've just released, The Art and Science of Compassionate Care. It's a cooperation between the International Institute of Compassionate Care and Springer. Today, this is going to be a short series where some of the chapters are going to be presented, and I'm going to do the introduction now. You can see the editors here. It's myself, George Samutis, Neoftos Stylianou, and Andreas Anastasiou, and Christos Lyonis. This book is part of a series with Springer called New Paradigms in Healthcare. So let's get right into it. Before I talk a bit about the book, I want to talk about the cornerstone of the book, which is compassion. What is compassion? So there's a lot of definitions out there describing what compassion is, but one of the definitions that I really like is a definition of a child. So a child defines compassion as, when my friend is sad, I go and I make funny faces in order to make him feel better. And this encompasses two elements, and the two elements of compassion. The first element is there's an awareness of the suffering of the other person. And the second element is this awareness is coupled with the wish to relieve it. Now, another word that is commonly heard is empathy. Empathy only encompasses the first part, an awareness of the suffering of another. Compassion goes one step further and couples with it the wish to relieve that suffering. So this is the theoretical definition of compassionate care. Now, if you look at a more practical definition, and the way to do this is you go to the person who's receiving compassion and ask them to describe practically what compassion is. And the person you go to is basically patients. And these are testimonies from patients who describe what compassion, how they felt compassion. And these testimonies can be split into two categories. One is therapeutic actions and another is therapeutic inactions. So starting with therapeutic actions, patients describe compassion as, he attended to the little things. My healthcare professional went over and above. He understood my medical condition. Understood is a very key word. And then you have therapeutic inactions, which some of them include, the consultant gave me the gift of quiet time and space. And then another one, which is very nice, I really like, is he avoided futile over-treatment. And these are just some practical definitions of compassion. Now, the next question that we have to ask ourselves is, why is it important? So why is compassion important? Now, this question dates pretty far back. Here we have a picture of Plato and Aristotle in the Platonic Academy, which is the first university of the world. And Aristotle, being one of the most famous people to come out of this university, he said the following: educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And it's pretty remarkable to see that these questions of values, etc., were so significant even for the first university back then, 350 before Christ. Now I'm going to shift away from the philosophical and go to a more science-based way of looking at this. And the first person it impacts is patients. So what does the literature say here? So patients rank compassion as one of the most important, or even the most important, treatment factor. And I think that's that tells a lot. And when consultants practice compassion, it makes patients less likely to lie and more likely to comply to treatments. Overall, it has physiological, psychological, and spiritual benefits. I'm going to touch on physiological and psychological here, but Professor George Samutis later on will be talking about the spiritual benefits. So physiological and psychological benefits, it actually accelerates recovery. It decreases anxiety and depression, improves pain tolerance, and allows patients to control the chronic illness much better. The other people that actually really benefit from this is healthcare professionals, and healthcare professionals benefit from this in two major ways. So one of the ways is it increases job satisfaction. The second way, which is I think the most important of the two, is it decreases the rates of burnout. And burnout is another pandemic going on around the world with healthcare professionals. Only in the US, around 500,000 of healthcare professionals every year suffer from burnout. And this costs the US around $12 billion annually. So the fact that compassion can actually decrease burnout, it comes to show how significant it is. So we've talked about what compassion is and why it's important. And I'm going to present the book. At the International Institute of Compassionate Care, we were seeing around us, coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, now we have a mental health pandemic. We have wars going on around migration. We have political polarization. All around us, there's a crisis and a healthcare crisis. The only thing that you have to do is go down to a hospital, especially here in London, and talk to the people who are on the first line, and you realize how dire the situation is. And seeing this and knowing the significance of compassion and the benefits of it, we decided to write and publish The Art and Science of Compassionate Care. Now, this is a book which is a practical guide and serves in order to bridge the gap between the theoretical knowledge and the practical application of compassion. So how do we practically use compassion? And through the book, we provide evidence-based methods in order to implement this. And it's a book that's been written by a multidisciplinary team of doctors, academics, psychologists, nurses. We have healthcare managers, healthcare policymakers, medical students, and patients that have all implemented in order to provide the skills and knowledge that will help decrease the costs of healthcare, and the most important one is improve and save the lives of patients around the world. These are the chapters of the book. We talk about evidence-based medicine, compassionate self-care, compassion in a crisis, compassion in primary care, but also in trauma and critical care, compassionate leadership, compassionate care, health, economics, and spiritual care. This series is going to encompass a few of the chapters and a few of the authors talking about them. The first one is I'm going to be talking about cultivating compassion in the new generation. This is my chapter. Then Sir David Haslam will be talking about compassionate care and evidence-based medicine. Dr. Andreas Anastasiou will be talking about compassionate self-care for the compassionate healthcare professional. Professor Christos Lyonis will be talking about compassionate care within the primary healthcare setting. And Professor George Samoutis will be talking about compassionate spiritual care. So thank you for watching. You can find in the description the link for the book, and you can also find the links for all the references that I used.